Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Session 5, the 2025 Robotics Application Conference presented by Gray Orange. Tim Culverhouse with you once again, Editorial Director of Robotics 24/7, and I'll continue serving as your moderator throughout RAC 2025. And now you're in our industrial manufacturing session, and the presentation title is On the Assembly Line, the State of Robotics Industrial Manufacturing. Now, before we get into today's presentation and our roundtable discussion, let's go over some housekeeping. For those of you in attendance today, thank you again for joining us as part of RAC 2025. If the slides accompanying today's discussion aren't advancing in your window, please hit the F5 key to refresh. Viewers who'd like to download any PDFs of today's slides and supporting documents from our RAC 2025 Platinum sponsor, Gray Orange, can do so by clicking on the blue paperclip resources box, and you can find that at the bottom of your browser. You can also access these resources on the Industrial Manufacturing session page as part of the Robotics Application Conference 2025. Now, if you're still experiencing any other technical difficulties with today's program, please click the orange question mark box at the bottom of your console for further help and instructions. Now, we'll continue our way through RAC 2025 and look at the schedule, some of the sessions that have already gone on in the artificial intelligence, ASRS, goods to person sessions as well. And then after today's presentation with industrial manufacturing, we'll wrap up with our automated pallet operations. Now, as a reminder, thank you again for joining us live today. All these sessions will also be available online following the final session. That is, again, our 3:30 program on automated pallet operations. Special thanks to our 2025 sponsors, Gray Orange, the platinum sponsor of the 2025 Robotics Applications Conference, along with Ocado Intelligent Automation, Plus One Robotics, and Infios. And our speakers for Robotics 2025, all of these wonderful organizations and people joining us today to discuss the robotics industry. We're so excited that we could have you, and looking forward to an awesome conference in 2025 and further in 2026. So with all that being said, automation is everywhere in industrial manufacturing. The aerospace, automotive, and defense industries are flush with robotics in all segments of production. As technological advancements enable more mobility, precision, and resiliency with robotics and manufacturing processes, how are organizations utilizing these technologies to their advantage? What economic uncertainties are pausing further development with automation in manufacturing? And what's on the horizon for machine tending, milling, welding, and more with robots? Now, to speak about these topics and discuss the most pertinent issues and trends in industrial manufacturing, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today's session. First, we have Jeff Bernstein, President of the Association for Advancing Automation, A3. Samantha Mou is a Senior Analyst at Interact Analysis. And Dr. Abdallah Nassar is Vice President of Astro America and the Manufacturing Lead of FSU Inspire. And Jeff, Samantha, and Abdallah, thank you so much for joining us as part of RAC 2025 and discussing these topics in the world of industrial manufacturing. With that said, I'd like to toss it over to Jeff Bernstein, President of A3, for his introduction. Jeff, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Great to be here. As Tim said, I'm Jeff Bernstein, the President of A3. This is how you can reach me if you like. If you're not familiar with A3, we're the largest North American trade association for robotics and automation, with about 1,400 company members from the fields of robotics, vision and imaging, motion control and motors, and AI. We've been around for over 50 years. I've been fortunate to be there for more than 4 decades, been running it for 18 years now. This is our flagship event, the Automate Show, that many of you may have been to, and if you haven't, I hope you will. Next year's show is in Chicago. We'll have over 1,000 exhibitors and about 50,000 registrants, free to attend, so hope to see you there. Some of the other types of events we're holding this year are focused on the hottest issue in robotics right now, which is humanoid robots. We'll be in Seattle on September 23rd. And then the next 2 days, the 24th and 5th, will be our focus event, a new event focused on intelligent vision and industrial AI. So hoping to see you at one of these upcoming events. Always happy to discuss robotics and automation. So you have my contact info, and look forward to speaking with you.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And now I'd like to turn it over to Samantha Mou, Senior Analyst at Interact Analysis. Samantha, over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Mou. I'm a Senior Market Analyst at Interact Analysis, which is a global market intelligence company with a strong focus on the manufacturing sector. Our headquarters is in the UK with offices in Austin, US, and in Shanghai, China. And these are the 5 directors and founders of our company, and each of them has over 20 years experience in doing market research in the industry. And we focus particularly in industrial automation, robotics and warehouse, and commercial vehicles and new energy. So here are the topics that we cover, the standard reports that we publish every year regarding the industrial manufacturing. These topics cover automation components, machinery markets, and robotics, and also warehouse automation technologies. So a little bit things about me. I do research and write reports on industrial robots, components in robots, and also precision and industrial gearboxes. I'm based in our China office, but my research covers the global market. As part of our research process, we regularly speak with manufacturers that make up 80 to 90% of the global market in the area we're studying. So these conversations are very important for our research and for us to reflect the real market dynamics and trends. And this is also one of the parts of my work that I enjoy the most. So I'm really honored to speak at such an event today, and I look forward to our discussion and hearing everyone's insights. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sam. And now we'll turn it over to Dr. Abdallah Nassar of Astro America and FSU Inspire.
Thanks, Tim. A little bit about myself. So as Tim mentioned, I'm with Astro America, where I'm a vice president there. Also the manufacturing lead for Florida State University's new institute focused on advanced manufacturing and aero testing. We call it Inspire. Prior to this, I was with John Deere for a number of years as their additive manufacturing lead. And then prior to that, I was with Penn State University's Applied Research Lab, which is a university-affiliated research center for the Department of Defense. So really my research has focused on automation, additive manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. And so really happy to speak with you today. You know, some of the accomplishments are there on the screen, but we can probably jump to the next slide here, and I'll talk to you through what Astro is and a little introduction of Inspire. So Astro America is a nonprofit 501c3 based in the United States, of course. We help build advanced manufacturing accelerators across the country, spanning from Guam, where we have an activity focused on the maritime industrial base, to the Midwest, where we have the world's largest friction stir additive system that we've developed to help the U.S. Army implement some very unique capabilities within the Rock Island Arsenal. And of course in the Northeast, and where I'm working in the Southeastern United States in the state of Florida. Next slide, please. And what is Inspire? So Florida State University's Inspire, this is a new initiative where we are bringing together both education as well as the end users of advanced manufacturing technologies, the prime contractors, and trying to build an environment where we have end-to-end manufacturing, where feedstock comes in on one end and then finished components leave on the other end. Obviously, this is going to involve a lot of unique capabilities, including automation, AI, machine learning, and robotics are a key enabler to many of those aspects as well. We'll be doing welding, we'll be doing CNC machining, as well as the more advanced additive manufacturing capabilities that are now available. Thanks, everyone. I'll turn it back over to Tim.
So Jeff, Samantha, Abdallah, again, thank you so much for taking part in this industrial manufacturing session at RAC 25. It's great to have such a broad knowledge base and a great sense of a lot of the different industrial manufacturing trends and analysis that's going on from A3 and Interact Analysis, and also Astro America and FSU Inspire. With that being said, let's dig a little bit deeper here into our roundtable portion of the program. I'd like to start with a question for the three of you, and we'll go Jeff, Samantha, and then Abdallah. General question, and Jeff will pose it to you first. How would you describe the industrial manufacturing industry in 2025? How are we utilizing robotics and automation differently now compared to previous years? And then the follow-up to that, as you make your way through the answer, What technological innovations are also moving this industry forward? What do you think you'll see next? So I know it's a loaded question to start off this part of the program, but curious what your thoughts are for both past, present, and future. And Jeff, we'll throw it over to you to start.
Well, I mentioned that I've been in this business for over 4 decades, and so this is by far the most exciting time. What we're seeing in robotics and automation is unprecedented, really. It started out as an industry that was focused on one market, and that was automotive, and about 80% of the robots were going to the automotive market when I began. We knew that this wasn't really sustainable if you wanted to see an industry grow. And so now you look at the types of companies that are using robotics, it's basically every industry, whether it's agriculture, construction, food, in addition to material handling and warehousing and manufacturing. Every industry is looking at how they can take advantage of these technologies. That's the exciting part. Right now, though, we're seeing a lot of uncertainty around the market with the impact of tariffs and trade issues with other countries. So at least the North American market has been up a little bit this year. We'll see how the year ends now that there have been new tariffs put in place on steel and aluminum. And so the outlook in the short term is sort of murky. The long-term outlook, however, remains incredibly bright because we're seeing a lot of new facilities open in the United States and not a lot of factories, some reshoring, which will be more, we believe, going forward, which creates all sorts of opportunities for robotics and automation. There's no way you can do advanced manufacturing in the United States without highly automated facilities. What that also means, however, is that we have to have more skilled workers. So workforce training becomes more important than ever. And I think we'll see a lot more energy put into that to make sure that we have the skilled workforce that we need to take full advantage of these technologies. So I think going forward, you're going to see an awful lot more robotics and automation in North America and throughout the world. Again, what I'm talking about here is going on elsewhere. And a lot of it will be driven by advances in areas like artificial intelligence, machine vision, these other enabling technologies that make robots more capable. Now, I mentioned humanoids in my intro. Humanoids are the rage. It's where all the money is going right now. And the question is that the right form factor? Will we have multitasking humanoid robots in our future? I think the answer could be yes. I think the time frame is murky on how quickly that can happen. Is there a lot of safety issues? And there's just frankly a lot of technology issues. And it's not really even clear yet what the applications are that make a humanoid better than a traditional form factor, such as an industrial robot, a mobile robot with an industrial arm on it, or a collaborative robot, or any other form factor to do a specific task. But we'll see where this heads. And like I said, it'll be exciting to be a part of.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Samantha, same question. We'll toss it over to you now.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The global economy has been facing a tough environment since 2023. There was lots of uncertainty, slow growth, and a cautious investment. We actually saw 2024 as a low point in this cycle, but as we look at the first half of 2025, we are starting to see some early and encouraging signs of recovery, although things are still pretty mixed across regions and sectors. But overall, in terms of adoption of robots, we are seeing that robot now is increasing its penetration in some emerging and niche applications, and even in non-manufacturing scenarios, such as warehouse and logistics, and also in the catering industry, and also for service. So previously, robot had its highest penetration in traditional industry, manufacturing sectors like automotive or electronics. But now we see industrial robots being more adopted in the non-manufacturing sectors too. And the technology that is affecting also the adoption of robots, we would definitely say the combination of AI and also AI-driven machine vision combined with robots, for example, robot picking with the AI-driven machine vision for pick and place. So that is one of the most eye-catching application that we've seen in the exhibition in the recent years. And this combination of robot arm combined with the insights provided by the AI-driven software and technologies is also driving the ease of use of robots, and is helping robots to be adopted by small and medium-sized enterprises, and help robots to penetrate in like small and emerging industries too.
Well, thank you so much, Samantha. And now, Abdallah, what are you seeing in terms of the industrial manufacturing industry 2025? And then, what would you say are some things that you're paying attention to as you move forward here in technological advancements that can drive this industry forward with robotics and automation?
Yeah, great. I'll echo some of the themes that have already kind of been stated. So, over the past decades, we've seen all major industrial manufacturers move in the direction of adopting robotics and automation, particularly in the United States and Europe, right? You have to. Particularly in the U.S., I mean, there's this big effort now to, again, reshore, to revitalize advanced manufacturing, but labor costs are very high in the U.S., and safety concerns are paramount in any sort of industry setting. So implementing robotics beyond sort of the traditional approaches of just very repeated actions is going to be in need. And what I'm trying to say is that kind of the lens or the application space for robotics is likely to increase to replace more complex tasks that have been traditionally reliant on human labor. That being said, of course, yes, you will need somebody to program these robots. It'll require a much higher skill set to maintain these systems and to keep things going. So you're not necessarily replacing all the workers. You're going to require some reskilling and some advancement there. Common themes that are widespread today, and they've continued, are things like smart automations, connected factories, intelligent factories. That's still accelerating. Data is now more appreciated than ever. That's particularly true with what we're seeing in terms of adoption of AI and machine learning tools to analyze existing data, pull in data from essentially the internet, use these large language models to provide context to what is going on in the world, maybe provide some more intuition to systems that previously were very limited in their understanding of the physical world. There's lots of argument as to whether that's a valid approach, but people are trying to adopt it. Of course, in terms of where we're going next, my crystal ball is as good as anybody else's. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that the big need, especially in some advanced manufacturing spaces, is the ability to have robots that can adapt, that can move along flexible paths in highly reliable manners and highly accurate manners, not just worrying about the start position and the end position of the end effector, but really having paths that are well-defined and accurate. That will aid things like tool-free assembly, additive manufacturing, which I'm particularly interested in. So that's really where I think we need to focus and go in the next several years.
I'm hearing some common themes between our three panelists today, so I'm glad that for the most part, we're all on the same page in terms of how we're viewing this industrial manufacturing sector with robotics and automation. So thank you to the three of you for kicking that off as part of our roundtable today. And again, for our audience, just so you can see on the screen, you can submit a question for our panelists that will be potentially answered after today's session, and then the survey and additional resources from our sponsor, Gray Orange, all available in your browser window right now. Now to some more directed questions for our roundtable segment. And Jeff, again, I'll start with you, making our way around the program here. You mentioned humanoids, and obviously a very big, sexy topic in the world of robotics and automation, and the upcoming Humanoid Robot Forum and the Focus Intelligent Vision and Industrial AI Conference happening later this month in Seattle. And you touched upon it in your first answer, but I want, if you would be so kind as to expand a little bit, especially in industrial manufacturing. You mentioned the form factor of humanoids, and I'm curious, how are they integrating into that segment of the industry? And then you mentioned, is that the right form factor? Are there some safety barriers that are either accelerating or prohibiting adoption of humanoids into this segment. So I'm just curious if you could expand on that a little bit, please.
Sure. As far as I can tell, there's only one humanoid working in the US in production. I'm not talking about pilots, I'm talking about in production. GXO has talked about that they have an agility robot working in production. Now, one thing about that robot is that it's not working around people yet. It's working in basically a caged-in area, but it's moving in that area. The reason is there are no robot safety standards for humanoids yet. And organizations like A3 and others are working on that, but they don't exist. Now, I don't know, frankly, what the situation is in China. They have a lot of humanoids in the field. I don't know if they're working around people yet or not. But this is the big concern as far as I can see with humanoids. It's not clear that they're safe. When you see demos of them, when you see them around people in sort of a trade show environment, I've been to an event where a very famous humanoid fell and there had been children in the room just a few minutes earlier. I can only imagine what the coverage of that would have been had one of those children been hurt. This is not something that, it's not a technology, in my opinion, that's ready to be in anybody's homes. It's not ready to be in any factory yet if it's not away from people. So that's my biggest concern. Second concern is, look, I know they're being piloted in warehousing. I know they're being piloted in manufacturing, the auto industry, great interest in them. But are they better than existing form factors at a specific task? Can they do it as reliably, as affordably? We don't know what the cost ultimately is going to be of humanoids. Can they do it repeatably without, needing to take hour-long issues with battery changes and things like that? I know there have been some advances in China where a robot can change its own battery. And what I hear when I talk to people in our industry is many of them are very skeptical, as I have been, about where we're headed with humanoids. And others are very bullish. And I think it has to do with the time frame. I believe this is going to happen in the same way I believe driverless cars is eventually going to happen. I just didn't believe it was going to be in 5 years when they told us that 10 years ago. We still don't have driverless cars at scale. I think we will eventually, but it takes time. The wild card here, though, is the AI. Everybody agrees that the AI is going to be the key element, and it's not quite there yet. I was just at a big World Robot Conference in China where the leading humanoid company there, Unitree, talked about that the AI isn't quite there yet. But within a few years, he thought 1 to 3, it would be, and that would change everything. And that could be right.
Well, I'm going to throw my hand up and say I'm in the skeptic element as well as the editor here, and some of the, again, advancements that we've seen in this field, especially boiling it down to industrial manufacturing, what that means in terms of working around people and the safety element as well, obviously a major concern. Samantha, now over to you. You touched upon this in your answer to the initial question of our roundtable discussion today, but how are some global economic conditions affecting investments in industrial manufacturing? And specifically, in the automotive, the electronics, the defense segments, are any of them being more affected than others? What is your research at Interact Analysis showing in terms of investment in these segments?
Yeah, it's a very good question. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've seen 2023 and 2024 as pretty challenging years. And we're seeing 2025, we're seeing some early signs of recovery, but the picture is mixed across different regions. For example, in North America and Europe, the high interest rates still put pressure on manufacturing investment, especially in the capital-intensive sectors like heavy industry. And in Asia, there was sluggish demand across key economies, and China has had overcapacity issues. This held back investments last year, but this year we're starting to see improvements in the US and in Asia, but environment in Europe is still challenging. In terms of different sectors, the automotive sector has been one of the industries that were hit most. For example, for industrial robots, there was significant decline in demand in both North America and Europe. but in the automotive investment in Asia have been more stable, which is mainly driven by strong spending by Chinese automakers. And for the electronics sector, it struggled quite a bit over the past 2 years. But in 2025, we're seeing a clear rebound, which is mainly driven by the development of AI. And also the US policy initiatives, they are playing a key role to encourage like semiconductor and electronics manufacturers to expand or reshore their production. And finally, one area that's clearly gaining momentum is defense. Government spending is on the rise, and many US and European automation companies also mentioned to us that they are looking at opportunities in this space. Our research shows that US-based companies currently hold a leading position in the defense sector, and these companies are well positioned to benefit from this wave of investment. Yeah, that's what our research are showing, and like the picture is pretty mixed across sectors.
So Abdallah, I've got one for you now, and I want you to dig a little bit deeper into FSU Inspire and thinking about what the program is doing there down in Northwestern Florida. How is the Institute applying STEM education to encourage students to pursue careers in manufacturing and engineering? And then the follow-up to that, you mentioned it as part of your intro, your location and your geographic proximity to organizations in the aerospace and defense sectors in Northwest Florida. What is FSU Inspire doing to attract students into these STEM fields? And then once they're through the FSU program, making their way out into the real world, especially in the aerospace and defense and manufacturing segments?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll actually take the second one first because it's important to provide a little bit of context. So FSU Inspire is headquartered in Panama City, Florida, in the Florida Panhandle. And that region arguably has the highest concentration of military installations in the nation. That includes many tens of thousands of exiting service members on a yearly basis. Those are folks who maybe have a few years in service, maybe more, but are typically fairly young. Oftentimes, they are looking for career opportunities beyond the military for the remaining 20, 30, 40 years of their careers. And so FSU Inspire is not just focused on traditional student education. We also want to provide an environment for K to gray education. What that means is not only targeting the traditional high school student who's going to do a college degree, but targeting folks who have a wide degree of skill sets that they've already acquired throughout their careers, who want to upskill or learn something new. I think that's going to be really, really critical, especially if AI is as disruptive as everyone thinks it's going to be. This includes folks who already might have an undergraduate degree in a field that maybe isn't as attractive today as it was a few years ago in terms of job opportunities. How we're going to do this. So the vision is to build an emulation of an end-to-end production environment. That is, we are currently building a facility, a factory that is going to be used to not only house educators and researchers, but to do prototype and possibly low-rate production within a certified environment. The idea is the best way to educate folks is to bring them into a production line type environment, have them learn on the shop floor or on the line. And so we're going to have opportunities not only for technicians, but also undergraduates up to the PhD level to work with systems in the field. These include robotic systems, for example, maintaining a robot arm or programming a robot to follow very complex paths, which you kind of need to do in fields like additive manufacturing. So that's kind of the vision, and that's how we're doing it. It's an effort supported by an organization that's kind of unique called Triumph Gulf Coast that was set up in the wake of the BP oil spill, which has provided the seed funding for this activity. So it's a fairly well-funded effort. We have collaboration and buy-in from all of the state colleges in the region. We're working very closely with high schools. We have a whole organization called the Learning Systems Institute that establishes curricula not only within the United States but internationally, focused on educating the educators within our region of service. So they go into schools, do little demonstrations, focus a lot on AI and machine learning. Can even do things like 3D print sections that can be generated into a makeshift robotic arm to really help educate the educators so they can teach their students once they go back to their schools. So we're trying to provide pathway opportunities really across K to Gray to help the economy within our region, as well as to help the nation in terms of creating people who know how to use robots, as well as who have really deep expertise in advanced manufacturing.
You've both hit on the labor element of this as well. It seems to be a common theme going into the reshoring elements in the United States right now. So interesting to kind of see it from a couple different elements here as we make our way through our session. And again, thank you for joining us for our industrial manufacturing session here at RAC 2025. I've got one more question each for all the panelists on today's program. And Jeff, we're going to make our way back to you. And it's been a couple months now. I hope you've had a chance to debrief from Automate 2025 before you turn the page to 2026. And just wanted to see if I could pick your brain a little bit in terms of any surprises, anything that caught your eye at Automate in the industrial manufacturing sector, technological innovations, new deployments, things that you're interested in following up as we approach Automate 2026, and then just industrial manufacturing as a whole here.
Well, I think the two biggest things. First is just the overall size of the event. It has grown so much. Unlike many events, COVID didn't delay the growth of Automate or lead to a reduction in size. It actually, coming out of COVID, the show has grown tremendously. Why is that? Because there's so much interest in how do you take advantage of robotics and AI and these technologies. Every industry, as we've said earlier, is looking at doing this, and that's what we saw at Automate. Every industry was there. People who had never been to Automate before, more than half of the people who came this time, I think, had never been to Automate before, and they're looking for solutions. And the number of solutions shown at the show, as I said, was the largest we'd ever had. We sold out all of the space in Detroit, which is one of the main drivers for us having now to be in Chicago on the even years every year. We'll be there in 26, as you said, and then 28 and beyond. And the reason is that there's so much more space there. There's so many more opportunities to showcase robotic solutions, AI solutions, machine vision, and all of these new advances. So I think you're going to continue to see this interest in automating. Now, again, near term, whether the market actually accelerates at the same pace that the show is remains to be seen because of issues that we can't control. Obviously, government policies that have to do with tariffs and might be forcing companies to pause on their buying decisions right now. And hopefully we'll be past that by the time we get to Automate 26 in Chicago, and then continue that into Las Vegas in 2027 when we move there for the first time. But we're extremely bullish about the future of robotics and AI and all these other technologies in every industry. And that's what you'll see reflected, I think, if you haven't been to the Automate show. You'll see that on the show floor. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, because you'll see applications that resonate with you. So I hope many of the people out there, if they haven't made their plans to go to Automate next year, I hope they'll do so.
Sam, one more question for you. And this one touches again about some of the economic uncertainties you mentioned in your first question, but some KPIs that organizations, and then also from the Interact analysis side, some market research firms, what are some, I guess I should say, KPIs that you look at for the growth of the industrial manufacturing sector? And then the follow-up to that, have they largely remained unchanged, or are KPIs evolving as technology evolves and demonstrates either growth or declines in terms of industrial manufacturing?
Yeah, thank you for the good question. When it comes to tracking the industrial manufacturing sector, there are some classic KPIs that we always consider as important to indicate the growth of the overall industry and the business cycle. These are things like production output and volume of new orders, and also order backlog, inventory or finished goods, and investment, like capacity utilization, lead times. So a lot of classic KPIs that we use and we track. But we also ask about like sales revenues, units shipped, and pricing. That's what we ask in our direct service with manufacturers in the market. So those metrics give us a clear picture of how demand is trending, and also reflect how intensive the market competition is. But as you mentioned, the development of technology is very rapid, and we're definitely seeing the KPI landscape evolve. For example, the energy efficiency has become a key focus, as manufacturers need to comply to ESG regulations, and there is growing demand and energy saving features in automation equipment and components. So another thing that we're also seeing KPIs is related to the digitalization. Those KPIs are gaining importance. For example, in a recent study on precision gearbox that I do recently, we quantify the market size for products with sensors, which are mainly used for monitoring and for predictive maintenance of the product. So there are some trends that have not yet been quantified as KPIs, but also they are clearly emerging. For example, we are actively tracking the adoption of AI in robotics. So overall, there are some core KPIs that remain valuable, those classic ones, and it's increasingly important for us also to expand our tools and to capture the broader factors that drive growth and competitiveness in the tech-driven environment today. So it's really about combining the traditional performance measures with indicators that show how quickly the market is adapting to the new technologies.
Thank you again, Samantha, especially on the KPI element of that. Interesting to kind of hear that weaved into all of the portions of today's conversation. And Abdallah, last question for you, and last question as part of our roundtable here. You mentioned it earlier, additive manufacturing. What role is that playing in conjunction with industrial manufacturing? Are we seeing more additive than we have previously? And then what are organizations doing to utilize additive processes, to their benefit here in 2025 and moving forward?
Yeah, thanks for that. So additive is probably still the fastest growing manufacturing segment, especially compared to traditional manufacturing segments, which are growing at a fairly slow rate worldwide. Today, it's arguably roughly $20 billion industry, so not very big, but growing aggressively. There's a big emphasis on its applications for things like revitalizing shipbuilding and focusing on the maritime industrial base, modernization within the United States, aerospace and energy applications span the gamut and are being pursued by a lot of folks today. In terms of application of robotics to additive manufacturing, there are a lot. The number of companies advertising AM, additive manufacturing, leveraging things like articulated robot arms have grown exponentially, I would say, in the past 5 years. There are many different systems that can be used, right? So, you could probably use something like a selective compliance articulated robot arm or a Delta robot, but by far, articulated robot arms with 6 degrees of freedom or more are the most commonly used within the industry, and they work fairly well. I would say the challenge with that solution, in case your viewers are interested, is that traditional robot arms are really good at repeatability, but what you need for many additive manufacturing applications is you really need the robot to be able to have very high first run accuracy for arbitrarily defined paths, meaning the robot has to follow a precise path that changes every single time it does a function. It's not doing the same thing over and over and over again. And that remains to be a big challenge in the industry. particularly because in order to do this, oftentimes researchers or end users want to be able to integrate lots of sensors, know how their previous path was deposited, make adjustments on the future path. And most of the operating systems that currently exist are black box. They don't readily allow you to do that. Yes, there are lots of add-ons and licenses that give you a flavor of this, but it remains to be a big challenge. How to integrate these systems to do what it is that we need, which is very flexible but very accurate paths, being able to provide appropriate stiffness to the system to carry a heavy end effector, and to do more complicated things like hold a part, move it in a particular path, allow you to deposit a feature on it, and then maybe assemble that part with additional parts. These are things that kind of push the boundaries of where robotic technology is today. But I feel confident that in the next few years, we're going to be able to tackle some of those challenges. And I see additive manufacturing as only growing in importance in some very specific sectors that are critical to the U.S. national defense, to be clear.
Well, interesting stuff. Again, Jeff, Samantha, and Abdallah, it's great to have such a broad scope of the industrial manufacturing segment with robotics and automation in 2025. I want to thank you again for joining us today as part of our conversation. And once again, a reminder for those that are in attendance today, you can submit a question for our panelists, have a chance to have that answered possibly after today's session. You can find other related content from the presiding sponsor of RAC 2025 Gray Orange in the resources box on your console, along with the RAC session page. Lastly, before you make your way out of today's session, maybe hopefully tune in for our next one coming up here. Fill out the survey, open on your console. It helps us in making better programs moving forward, and we greatly appreciate you taking the time to do that. So again, we'll take one more look at the schedule of the Robotics Application Conference in 2025. Reminder, all of these sessions will be available on demand if you happen to miss them. Our keynote presentation took off at noon this afternoon, along with our AI, machine learning, and computer vision, automated storage and retrieval systems, the facility and inventory monitoring and management sessions, goods to person. You just tuned into our industrial manufacturing session, and then we'll wrap up coming up here at 3:30 with the automated pallet operations session here at RAC 2025. So again, thank you for attending the industrial manufacturing track. The title of today's presentation, On the Assembly Line, the State of Robotics in Industrial Manufacturing. And thanks again to RAC 2025 sponsor, Gray Orange. So on behalf of our guests for today's panel, Jeff Bernstein, the president of the Association for Advancing Automation, A3, Samantha Mou, Senior Analyst at Interact Analysis, and Dr. Abdallah Nassar, Vice President at Astro America and Technical Project Lead for Manufacturing and Industry Consortium at FSU Inspire. This is Tim Culverhouse, Editorial Director of Robotics 2024/7 and the moderator for RAC 2025. Thanks so much. We'll see you at the next session. Hope to see you again at RAC 2026. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.